So I wanted to go over a potential pivot point. When you think about creating an admin interface, usually it's in the same language, in the same platform. It's just you can have everything coming together, hopefully creating what can be useful to the end user or potentially your client. And I've known about Django for a very long time. It's been hard to push to relatively anyone that's not aware of kind of what it can do, or just Python in general, and it doesn't really match or mingle with their current application. And so this is just a food for thought. And I wanted to run through kind of creating a project, creating an admin, adding in some simple model to it, and seeing how quickly you can create an interface to manage this type of stuff. So I'm going to first go off by making a folder, and just go ahead and use the following: Django Okay, let me back up a little bit. So there's something in Python you can do is have virtualized environments. And so I'm going to go ahead and create my virtualized environment real quick, and this lets you kind of specify the version of Python you want. So in this example, I'm going to go ahead and specify Python 3. This way I'm not using Python 2.7. And let me just go ahead and source. The source isn't really specific to Python. It's specific to Unix and Linux commands. You can activate, a set of environment variables to kind of get inside your terminal. And then I'm going to go ahead and install Django. I'm specifying the version, but you don't have to really. It'll just pull the latest version anyways. And then once that's installed, I'm going to run the Django Admin start project command. And I'm just going to go ahead and run the server. So sorry, I got to go to the project I just created. So now I have my server running. I can go to localhost 8000. This is very basic. It also has an admin interface, but at the moment I don't really have a database set up. So I'm going to walk you through that real quick because it's also a very important step. So the first thing I need to do is go ahead and just run the migration. It's already configured with SQLite, so you can just run the migration and it should be fine. But before I need to do that, I need a source vbin activate. So that way I can get my version of Python and all the other stuff set up, and then I can go ahead and run migrate. Now if I refresh my admin, I get a username and password. I don't have an admin just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and create an admin right now. That's using the same managed Python thing, but it has create super user. And I'm going to go ahead and just create my admin. Now it's created, so I can go ahead and log in. And now I'm able to control groups, users, change my password, view the site, log out. And I believe this is, no. I was going to say responsive, but that may be questionable. There are other themes that you can kind of turn on and enable for the Django administrator, so you don't have to get this specific one. It's also not that hard to go ahead and style up anyways. So I have my admin. The next part I want to kind of show is creating what they call as an application, but it's kind of just a module. And I'm just going to go ahead and create a poll application. So this creates kind of the boiling point. You've probably seen this in Ruby on Rails and other stuff where you just get kind of this set of files so you can start to mess with. So they have models, which is kind of interacting with the database, admin, which is what we're going to work on, views, which is kind of for the public site, app for configuration stuff, or just run your basic logic, migrations and tests, and so on. So the part that I need to do next is go ahead and create my my models. And I'm not going to go into this really too depth as far as typing it out, but I can at least explain what's happening. So I'm creating a question table with a text field and a date field. The question and the publish date. I'm also referencing the choice of the question, so multiple choice. It's set up as a foreign key. And if I was to delete the question, then all my choices should be deleted too. That's what this cascade on delete thing is for. They also support other stuff like self deletes and so on. So you don't have to do this. Then choice text, obviously, of what the choice is, and then the integer is just the number of votes. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that. But I gotta do two more things. So I have to make my migration first of my application. So I'm gonna go ahead and just, I gotta do one more step. So even though I've added my application, it doesn't auto add to the application, the general application. So I'm just going ahead and let's go ahead and put in the configuration. And now I can go ahead and run my migration or create my migration. And I'm going to go ahead and run it after this. So migrate. So now I have my polls created, but I don't have it into the admin just yet. So the one more thing, keep saying that I want to do is just go ahead and edit the admin polls. So polls admin. And I'm going to paste this in, but I'll explain it in. Choice, import from my models. Question, import from models. Add it in there. I'm going to go ahead and write it. And now I see polls, questions, and choices. I can add my question. So let's put some gobbledygook. Put in a date, time. As you notice, I'm not typing out the interface for this. None of this is actually there. And you can control, what fields they are, how they're displayed, and all this other stuff. It's very useful. You have like bulk actions and other stuff that you can add into there. So I'm gonna go to my choice, and when I add my choice, I get to pick my question. It knows about the relationship, it knows how to display it, and I can add in the text field for that. Now, as you know, this is kind of, flat. You can't really add a choice from a question. And so that's the next step I want to show. And it's not going to deviate too much from here, but I at least want to show you how little you have to do in order to get that type of interface. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete the register fields. And I'm going to add in some more lines of code. And I'll explain this a little bit. So I'm still going to provide the question, but I'm also going to provide the question admin, and I'm removing choice. What it's going to do is I'm not going to be able to add choices by themselves. I always need to add them via question. You can also choose the number of fields or the type of fields and how it's displayed and all this other stuff with it. And you can give it custom names because as before, you probably saw names that weren't really something that you appreciated. So you have that type of configuration for that. But the part that's important about this and this is that you're saying that, by the way, I want to inline choices. So I subclassed my choice, basically. Well, not choice, but stacked inline. And I referenced the model of choice. So as before I used to register it, now I'm putting it as the model of choice inline. And I'm saying at all times at least show 3 options to enter for questions. So this way they're not having to click add 3 times or whatever else. It's 3. You can always add more than that, but it's kind of just what's set as the extra. So I'm going to write this. And if I go back home, questions or the choices are now gone. I can go to my questions. I can go to my question object. And now I have the ability to add multiple questions in that same interface. Obviously, it's not super, clean designed and super useful. I mean, this could kind of be more in line, a little bit easier to look at rather than just being this big vertical box. You have the ability to change all of this. And you can customize the HTML, the JavaScript, the CSS. You what basically what happens is you get this very easy entry, and slowly you can kind of melt it down and mold it into something you want by slowly progressing down this little bit more piece of code path. You just keep adding on to this stuff, abstracting out more things to get that type of functionality that you need. So not only are you getting this type of easy interface to go ahead and just save all this stuff, you also get something that's also built in, which is some type of audit system. You know who changed what and what happened. So it's just something that's extremely powerful, really useful, and something that I've known about for a very long time. I've tried using, but it's hard to use. Introduce to another company or a client saying, "Hey, by the way, I don't really want to make all this admin stuff. Do you mind just using this?" I mean, it's basically like, imagine you go to the client and say, I don't really want to build you an admin system. How about you just use PHP by admin or something? That's kind of what I feel like this would normally run down as far as the path. But as you can see, it's very easily customized. The design isn't really that bad. It's actually got recently revamped to look a bit more flat and cleaner. And so it's just something to think about. We go through all this effort to make this great front end. But when it comes to the back end, it's like, oh, CRUD. I got to create, update, delete all this stuff and filters and searches. This does it all here for you. You don't have to go out of your way to create all this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I mean, if you didn't notice, the date is now like a show. You don't need to show it, but you can have this toggle here. I didn't program this toggle. It's already programmed. I didn't program this date picker or this time picker. All this stuff looks nice. It's very useful. And so it's just something to think about when we're creating this stuff. Like, we don't really need to do all this work. Just use something like this. And they certainly have a powerful management system as far as managing the front end too. But if you're already using something like PHP and you're invested into it, it's just another awesome thing to think about.